Hello, and welcome to Sleepy with Science. Tonight, we turn our attention to the quiet, green companions that share our world with us. Plants stand rooted and motionless, seemingly calm and still. Yet their lives are filled with hidden dramas, quiet strategies, and astonishing abilities that often escape our notice. They can communicate with one another, defend themselves using unusual methods, and even produce sounds that scientists are only just beginning to understand. They help sustain life across the entire planet, and in their presence, we often find something deeply calming, a sense of wonder mixed with stillness. Most of the time, however, we hardly notice them. We pass by trees, fields, and flowers as though they are simply scenery, decorative elements in the background of a busier world filled with animals and people. But plants are anything but passive. They sense light and gravity. They keep time. They share resources through hidden underground networks. They even retain memories of stress and environmental change. Science is only beginning to uncover the complexity of the plant world. And what researchers are discovering is far more intricate than we once imagined. As always, if you enjoy drifting off to gentle science and quiet wonder, feel free to like the video, subscribe, or leave a thought in the comments below. But for now, allow the noise of the day to fade away. Settle into stillness. Take a slow breath. Let your mind wander through the hidden lives of plants. And let's begin. Some plants are able to communicate with one another using chemical signals. Although they cannot speak in the way animals do, plants possess their own form of conversation. When an insect begins chewing on a leaf, the plant responds by releasing chemical compounds into the air. These airborne molecules drift toward nearby plants, carrying a warning of danger. When neighboring plants detect these signals, they react. Many begin producing bitter or toxic chemicals that make their leaves less appealing to insects. It is as if an invisible network of messages is constantly moving across a meadow or forest. Remarkably, this ability is not limited to communication within a single species. A tree under attack may send signals that are detected by other trees, shrubs, and even grasses growing nearby. To human observers, a green field may appear silent and still, but for the plants themselves, it is alive with information. They are not isolated individuals standing alone. Instead, they are participants in a complex, shared defense system, a quiet chemical conversation unfolding all around us. Trees also share nutrients through underground fungal networks. Beneath the soil lies an immense hidden web. Tree roots connect with fungi, forming structures known as mycorrhizal networks. Through these networks, trees exchange sugars, minerals, water, and even chemical signals. Large, mature trees that have access to abundant resources can send extra carbon to younger saplings growing in the shade. Sick or damaged trees may receive nutrients from healthier neighbors. In some forests, scientists have even observed that trees appear to favor their own offspring, directing more resources toward genetically related seedlings than toward unrelated plants. Researchers sometimes call this hidden system the wood wide web. Through it, entire forests function almost like a single, interconnected organism. Above ground, trees appear separate and independent, but below the surface, they remain bound together in a constant exchange of life. The next time you walk through a forest, remember that beneath your feet, thousands of hidden connections are weaving those trees into a quiet community. Some flowers can generate their own heat. Certain plants do more than simply open their petals and wait for pollinators. They actively warm themselves. Some flowers can raise their internal temperature several degrees above the surrounding air. One famous example is the skunk cabbage. In early spring, it can generate enough heat to melt surrounding snow, allowing it to bloom while the landscape is still frozen. This warmth attracts insects seeking shelter from the cold. It may also help spread the plant's scent more effectively through the air. Other species, such as the giant water lily, produce heat during their nighttime blooms, creating a warm refuge for visiting beetles. Producing heat requires energy, but the reward is increased chances of pollination and reproduction. To a casual observer, a flower may appear delicate and passive. In reality, some flowers operate like tiny biological furnaces, bending the usual rules of nature to ensure their survival. Even the quietest blossom may be running its own miniature heater, pulsing softly with hidden energy in the dark. Roots may use a kind of natural sonar to navigate underground. Roots grow in complete darkness as they search through the soil for water and nutrients. Yet they manage to avoid obstacles and locate favorable pathways. One possible explanation comes from a fascinating discovery. As roots extend through the soil, they produce faint clicking sounds. These sounds are extremely subtle and require sensitive instruments to detect, but they appear rhythmic and organized. Some researchers believe that roots may detect the vibrations produced by these clicks. In other words, roots might be using a primitive form of sonar, emitting vibrations and sensing the echoes that bounce back through the soil. By doing this, they may navigate the underground world more effectively. There is even evidence that roots can grow towards certain sound frequencies, suggesting a kind of acoustic sensitivity that scientists are only beginning to explore. What appears to us as simple, mindless growth may actually be a sophisticated form of exploration. Beneath every garden bed and forest floor lies a hidden network of roots quietly probing the earth with sound. Some seeds can remain dormant for thousands of years and still sprout. Seeds are nature's time capsules. Most seeds germinate within weeks or months after being produced, but some possess the astonishing ability to remain dormant for centuries, even millennia, before finally growing. In one remarkable case, scientists successfully revived a lotus seed that had been buried for more than 1,000 years. When planted, it grew into a healthy, flowering plant. In another study, researchers managed to germinate an Arctic flower from seeds that had remained frozen in permafrost for tens of thousands of years. Seeds achieve this incredible longevity by entering a state called dormancy. During dormancy, their internal chemistry slows almost to a halt. Their genetic material is protected by tough outer shells that shield them from damage. This allows seeds to endure droughts, fires, freezing temperatures, and even entire ice ages while they wait for favorable conditions to return. It is astonishing to think that such resilience can exist inside something so small. A seed may be older than entire civilizations, yet still hold the spark of life, patiently waiting for its moment to grow. The corpse flower smells like rotting flesh in order to attract pollinators. The Titan arum, more commonly known as the corpse flower, is famous for its enormous bloom and its overwhelming smell. When this plant flowers, it releases an odor so strong that it closely resembles the scent of decaying meat. For humans, the smell is unpleasant and often shocking, but for the flower's preferred pollinators, it is irresistible. Flies and beetles that normally feed on carrion are drawn toward the scent, believing they have discovered a source of food or a place to lay their eggs. To make the illusion even more convincing, the plant can also warm itself slightly. This warmth helps spread the smell farther through the air, mimicking the heat of decomposing flesh. The bloom itself is rare. It may take many years for a Titan arum to flower, and when it finally does, the event lasts only a few days. People often travel from around the world to witness the spectacle, lining up in botanical gardens to see and smell the famous bloom. For the plant, however, it is simply strategy. By imitating death, the corpse flower ensures its own life continues. It is a striking reminder that plants can be masterful tricksters, manipulating the senses of animals to achieve one of nature's most important goals: reproduction. Some trees can clone themselves and live for tens of thousands of years. Some of the oldest living organisms on Earth are not single trees, but vast colonies made of clones. The quaking aspen forests of North America provide a remarkable example. These trees reproduce not only through seeds, but also by sending out underground shoots from their roots. These shoots emerge from the soil and grow into new trunks. Each individual trunk may live for a century or two, but the root system beneath them can survive for tens of thousands of years, continually producing new trees. One famous colony in Utah, known as Pando, covers more than 100 acres. Scientists believe it may be at least 80,000 years old. To the eye, it looks like a forest of separate trees, but genetically, they are all the same organism, sharing identical DNA and connected through a single, vast root network. Clonal forests like this blur the boundary between individual and collective life. What appears to be a group of separate trees may in reality be a single, ancient being, stretching across both landscape and time. Plants can detect vibrations from insects chewing on their leaves. Plants may not have ears, but they can still sense sound in surprising ways. Researchers have discovered that when caterpillars chew on leaves, the vibrations created by their tiny jaws travel through the plant's tissues. The plant detects these vibrations and responds quickly. In response, it begins producing defensive chemicals that make its leaves less appealing or even toxic to insects. What is especially remarkable is that plants do not react to every vibration. The gentle rustling of wind or harmless movement nearby does not trigger the same defensive response. Instead, plants appear to recognize the specific vibration patterns produced by chewing insects. This suggests that plants possess a finely tuned awareness of their surroundings. They do not rely on eyes or ears, but on subtle physical signals traveling through their own bodies. Imagine a leaf detecting the sound of being eaten and instantly preparing its chemical defenses. It reveals that plants are far more perceptive than they appear, constantly sensing the world around them in ways we are only beginning to understand. Stressed plants can produce strange clicking sounds. When plants experience stress, they do not remain entirely silent. Using highly sensitive microphones, scientists have recorded sharp ultrasonic clicks emitted by plants that are under strain. Tomato plants and tobacco plants, for example, produce significantly more of these sounds when they are deprived of water or when their stems are cut. To human ears, these sounds are completely inaudible, but when recorded with specialized equipment, the clicks become clear and distinct. The exact cause of the sounds is still debated. Some researchers believe the clicks are produced by tiny air bubbles forming and collapsing within the plant's water transport system, a process known as cavitation. Others wonder whether the sounds could serve as signals that nearby plants or even insects might detect. Whatever their purpose, the discovery challenges our assumptions.
Plants may appear quiet and motionless, yet they may be constantly producing subtle acoustic signals when they are under stress. It is a humbling thought. The green world surrounding us may be filled with faint sounds of struggle and communication, signals too small for human ears to hear. Some desert plants collect water directly from fog. In deserts where rainfall is rare, survival requires extraordinary creativity. Some plants have evolved structures that allow them to capture moisture directly from the air. Their leaves, spines, or hairs are shaped in ways that collect tiny droplets of fog drifting through the landscape. As droplets gather on the plant's surface, they slowly merge and trickle downward toward the roots. This provides valuable hydration even when the soil itself is completely dry. Certain plants in the Namib Desert use fine, hair-like structures to pull water from passing mist. Cacti and other succulents have developed similar adaptations, collecting moisture from fog and dew that form overnight. To us, deserts may appear barren and lifeless, but for the plants that live there, every trace of moisture becomes an opportunity. They remind us that life often survives not by abundance, but by learning how to capture even the smallest gifts of water carried on the air itself. Trees can help create rain. Forests do not simply receive rainfall, they help produce it. Through a process called transpiration, trees release enormous amounts of water vapor into the atmosphere. Tiny pores in their leaves allow water to evaporate into the air. This vapor rises upward, cools, and eventually condenses into clouds. Later, it returns to the ground as rain. In massive forests like the Amazon rainforest, this process is so powerful that trees help generate their own weather systems.
Scientists believe that if large areas of forest were lost, rainfall patterns could dramatically change. Some regions might even transform from lush forests into dry savannas. The next time you stand beneath a canopy of leaves, consider that you are not just standing in shade. You are beneath a living fountain, a vast biological system, quietly sending invisible streams of water skyward. Trees do not simply drink the rain. In many ways, they help summon it. Certain orchids deceive insects by imitating female bees. Some orchids take deception to extraordinary levels. These plants release chemical compounds that closely mimic the scent of female bees. Male bees, attracted by the familiar scent, approach the flower, believing it to be a potential mate. In the process of attempting to mate with the flower, they accidentally collect or deposit pollen. This completes the orchid's reproductive cycle. The mimicry is so precise that even experienced bees are fooled. To human noses, the scent may seem faint or unremarkable, but to the sensitive perception of insects, it is irresistible. Some orchids go even further. Their petals are shaped to resemble the bodies of female insects, reinforcing the illusion. By exploiting the instincts of pollinators, these orchids achieve reproduction without even offering nectar as a reward. What appears to be a simple blossom is in reality a master of biological illusion. The largest living organism on Earth is a fungus connected to trees. Deep within the Blue Mountains of Oregon lies something extraordinary. A living organism that stretches across nearly 4 square miles. It is not a whale, not a giant tree, but a fungus. The organism is known as Armillaria ostoyae, commonly called the honey fungus. Beneath the forest floor, its thread-like filaments spread silently through the soil, weaving themselves among the roots of countless trees. By some estimates, this single individual weighs hundreds of tons and may be thousands of years old. To the casual observer, it appears only as small clusters of mushrooms pushing through the forest floor after rain, but those mushrooms are merely the visible tips of a vast underground network. Below the surface lies an immense living web, quietly growing, feeding, and expanding through the forest. It reminds us that life does not always reveal its true scale above ground. What seems small may in fact be enormous, hidden beneath the soil, where few eyes ever look. Forests are layered worlds, and some of their largest inhabitants exist entirely out of sight. Sunflowers follow the sun across the sky each day. Sunflowers are famous for their ability to track the sun as it moves across the sky. Throughout the day, their young flower buds slowly turn from east to west, following the path of sunlight. This phenomenon is known as heliotropism. By aligning themselves with the sun, the plants maximize the amount of light they receive, helping them grow more efficiently. During the night, the buds slowly rotate back toward the east, preparing themselves to greet the sunrise once again. As sunflowers mature, their movements gradually stop. Most fully grown flowers settle permanently facing east. This orientation allows them to warm quickly in the early morning light, which attracts pollinating insects sooner in the day.
Other plants perform similar movements as well, gently shifting their leaves or flowers in response to changing sunlight. To our eyes, these motions appear invisible because they happen so slowly. But when captured on time-lapse video, they resemble graceful dances. What looks like stillness is actually constant motion, plants quietly keeping time with the movement of the sun. In some regions, plants produce enormous amounts of oxygen. We often hear that ocean plankton and algae produce much of the Earth's oxygen, and globally this is true. However, in certain regions, land plants are responsible for producing the majority of oxygen in the atmosphere. Vast forests, grasslands, and wetlands release tremendous quantities of oxygen through the process of photosynthesis.
The Amazon rainforest is one of the most powerful examples. The density of plant life there makes it one of the planet's most important oxygen producers. Through photosynthesis, plants absorb carbon dioxide from the air and convert it into sugars for growth. Oxygen is released as a byproduct. In this way, forests act like enormous lungs for the planet. Although oceans cover more surface area, terrestrial ecosystems often concentrate plant productivity in remarkable ways. Every tree, shrub, and blade of grass contributes to the invisible exchange of gases that sustains life on Earth. It is humbling to consider that the breath you just took may have been shaped by forests thousands of miles away. Some plants can survive being completely frozen. In some of the most extreme environments on Earth, plants endure conditions that would destroy most forms of life. Certain Arctic mosses and alpine plants are capable of surviving when their tissues freeze solid for months at a time. Inside their cells, special sugars and protective proteins prevent ice crystals from forming in ways that would damage delicate structures. When temperatures rise again and the ice melts, these plants awaken almost immediately, resuming growth as if nothing had happened. Some species can survive repeated cycles of freezing and thawing without permanent damage. This ability is not only a remarkable adaptation, but also a source of scientific curiosity. Researchers study these mechanisms in hopes of applying them to agriculture and even medicine, perhaps one day helping preserve crops or human tissues during freezing. Though they may appear fragile, these plants are among nature's toughest survivors, thriving in environments where temperatures plunge far below freezing. Their resilience reminds us that life often endures in places we might assume to be completely inhospitable. Cacti can live for hundreds of years with very little water. The cactus is one of nature's great masters of desert survival. With thick, waxy skin and water-storing tissues, many cactus species can survive months, sometimes years, without rainfall. Large cacti, such as the saguaro, can live for more than 200 years. Their spines serve multiple purposes. They provide shade that reduces water loss, and they also discourage animals from feeding on the plant. Their root systems spread wide just beneath the surface of the soil, allowing them to collect even the smallest traces of rainfall. Inside the plant, expandable tissues store large amounts of water, turning the cactus into a living reservoir. These adaptations allow cacti to survive harsh desert conditions that would quickly destroy most other plants. To walk among tall cacti in the desert is to see a landscape filled with quiet giants, organisms that have mastered patience and endurance. Even when drought stretches for years, the cactus endures silently, holding its hidden supply of life within. Some plants can glow faintly under certain conditions.
Bioluminescence is rare in plants, but faint glowing effects have occasionally been observed in association with plant tissues. In many forests, certain fungi that grow alongside plants emit soft green light. These glowing fungi cast ghostly glimmers across the forest floor at night. More recently, scientists have engineered plants that glow by inserting genes from bioluminescent organisms. These experimental plants emit a gentle light without electricity. In the future, researchers imagine that glowing plants could serve as natural lighting systems for pathways or gardens. Even without genetic modification, some plant tissues fluoresce under ultraviolet light, revealing hidden patterns invisible to the human eye. Imagine walking through a forest where leaves glow softly in the darkness, like lanterns made of living tissue. Though natural glowing plants remain rare, the phenomenon reminds us that biology can bend the rules of chemistry in remarkable ways. What appears ordinary during the day may hold surprising beauty when seen under different light. Lotus seeds can germinate after more than 1,000 years. The sacred lotus is often seen as a symbol of rebirth and purity. Yet it also holds one of the most remarkable biological records of longevity. Scientists once discovered a lotus seed preserved in the dry bed of an ancient lake in China. Radiocarbon testing revealed that the seed was more than 1,000 years old. When planted, it germinated successfully and grew into a healthy lotus plant. The secret to this incredible survival lies in the seed's protective shell and the plant's ability to slow its metabolism almost completely. In this dormant state, life enters something close to suspended animation. For centuries, the seed lay hidden in mud and darkness, waiting quietly for the right conditions. When it finally sprouted, it carried within it the genetic memory of a plant that had last lived during an entirely different era. Every lotus that blooms from such ancient seeds carries a story of endurance across time. Some trees can remember droughts and adjust their growth. Trees quietly record their life stories inside their trunks. Each year, they form a new growth ring, and these rings preserve a history of the conditions the tree experienced. During years of drought, the rings are thinner, reflecting the difficulty of that season. But trees do more than simply record the past. Some appear capable of adjusting their future growth based on earlier experiences. After surviving a period of drought, many trees begin growing more cautiously in the following years. They conserve water more carefully and regulate their growth differently, as though preparing for the possibility of another dry season. This memory is not stored in a brain, of course. Instead, it exists within the tree's physiology, subtle changes in how it manages energy, water, and nutrients. The result is a form of biological learning. A tree that has endured hardship does not simply forget it. Instead, it carries the lesson forward, shaping the way it grows in the future. In this way, trees embody resilience across decades and centuries. Each trunk in a forest contains not only wood and bark, but a record of stress, survival, and quiet adaptation. Plants release warning chemicals when they are under attack. When insects begin chewing on leaves, the damage does not go unnoticed. Many plants respond by releasing airborne chemicals called volatile organic compounds. These invisible molecules drift through the air until nearby plants detect them. Upon sensing the signal, neighboring plants activate their own defensive systems. They may begin producing bitter chemicals or toxins, that make their tissues less appealing to herbivores. In some cases, plants can even distinguish between different kinds of attackers. A caterpillar feeding on leaves may trigger one type of chemical signal, while aphids might cause the plant to release a different set of compounds. In effect, plants broadcast distress signals into the air. These signals create an invisible network of communication that allows entire plant communities to respond collectively to danger. To human senses, the air may seem empty and still, but in reality, it is filled with chemical conversations, quiet exchanges of warning and defense drifting across forests and fields. Some plants launch their seeds like tiny projectiles. Not all plants rely on animals or wind to spread their seeds. Some species have evolved explosive mechanisms that propel seeds away from the parent plant with surprising force. One example is the touch-me-not plant, which produces seed pods that coil tightly as they dry. When touched, the tension is suddenly released. The pod snaps open and flings seeds several meters into the surrounding area. Another example is the squirting cucumber, which builds pressure inside its fruit until it bursts, spraying seeds outward in a jet of liquid. This method of seed dispersal may appear small in scale, but it is extremely effective. By launching seeds outward, the plant ensures its offspring will grow at a distance, avoiding direct competition for sunlight, water, and nutrients. To witness one of these tiny botanical explosions is to be reminded that even in the seemingly calm world of plants, sudden bursts of motion and energy can occur. Inside an ordinary-looking seed pod may lie a dramatic moment waiting to happen. Mangrove trees can filter salt from seawater. Along tropical coastlines grow forests of mangrove trees, plants that thrive in salty, brackish environments where most trees could never survive. Mangroves have evolved remarkable ways to deal with salt. Some species filter salt directly at the root level, allowing only fresh water to enter their internal transport systems. Others push excess salt into older leaves, which eventually fall away and carry the salt with them. Certain mangroves even excrete salt through tiny pores on their leaves. The salt crystallizes on the surface, sometimes leaving visible grains behind. These adaptations allow mangroves to build vast forests along coastlines. These forests are not only beautiful, but incredibly important ecosystems. They provide habitat for fish, birds, crabs, and countless other species. Mangroves also stabilize coastlines, protecting land from erosion and storm surges. To us, seawater may seem like an impossible environment for trees, but mangroves have transformed it into their home. They stand like living guardians along tropical shores, defying salt through ingenious biological solutions. Some carnivorous plants trap insects in pools of digestive liquid. Carnivorous plants have evolved an unusual solution to nutrient-poor environments. Instead of relying entirely on soil nutrients, they supplement their diet by capturing insects and small animals. One of the most striking examples is the pitcher plant. Its leaves form deep tubular traps filled with digestive fluid. The rim of the pitcher is often slippery, and the inside walls may be lined with downward-pointing hairs. Once an insect slips inside, escape becomes nearly impossible. Attracted by bright colors or sweet nectar, prey tumbles into the liquid, where it eventually drowns. The plant slowly breaks down the body and absorbs valuable nutrients such as nitrogen. In tropical regions, some pitcher plants grow large enough to trap frogs, lizards, and even small rodents. These plants blur the line between passive vegetation and active predator. They remind us that survival in nature can take forms far stranger than we might expect, even within the quiet world of plants. The Amazon rainforest produces an enormous amount of oxygen. The Amazon rainforest is often called the lungs of the earth. This nickname reflects the enormous amount of oxygen produced by its vast forests. Through photosynthesis, billions of trees absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen into the atmosphere. It is estimated that the Amazon contributes a significant portion of the oxygen circulating across the planet. Beyond oxygen production, the rainforest also plays a crucial role in regulating climate. Its forests store enormous amounts of carbon and help recycle rainfall across South America. However, this ecosystem is fragile. Deforestation and climate change threaten to disrupt the delicate balance that allows the Amazon to function. When we speak about the Amazon, we are not just describing a place on a map. We are describing a planetary system, a living engine that helps sustain the air and climate of the Earth. To walk beneath its towering canopy would be to step inside the machinery that supports life itself.
Some plants change flavor depending on the soil where they grow. The taste of many plants is influenced not only by their genetics, but also by the soil in which they grow. Grapes provide a famous example. Wine grapes grown in different regions develop distinctive flavors depending on the minerals, microbes, and moisture present in the soil. This phenomenon is known as terroir. The same variety of grape can produce dramatically different wines depending on where it is cultivated. Herbs such as basil, mint, and rosemary also vary in aroma depending on their growing conditions. Even vegetables, like carrots and potatoes, reflect the chemistry of the soil beneath them. What appears to be a single species can actually express countless subtle variations shaped by its environment. Every bite of a plant carries the imprint of the land where it grew. It is a reminder that plants are deeply connected to the ecosystems that nurture them. Leaves can change color not only in autumn, but also in response to stress. We usually associate colorful leaves with the arrival of autumn. During that season, the green pigment chlorophyll breaks down, revealing the yellows, oranges, and reds hidden beneath. But leaves can change color for other reasons as well. When plants experience stress, such as drought, nutrient deficiency, or physical damage, their internal chemistry can shift. Chlorophyll may fade earlier than usual, exposing the pigments underneath. In other cases, plants deliberately produce protective pigments known as anthocyanins. These pigments can shield plant tissues from excessive sunlight and sometimes help deter herbivores. As a result, leaves may turn reddish or purplish even in the middle of summer. To human eyes, these colors can appear beautiful,
but they often signal that the plant is experiencing difficulty. A sudden burst of color in an otherwise green landscape may not always be seasonal change. Sometimes, it is the quiet evidence of a plant responding to challenges in its environment. Some of the tallest trees on Earth grow higher than 30-story buildings. In the misty forests of California stand some of the tallest living organisms on the planet, the coast redwoods. The tallest known tree, nicknamed Hyperion, rises more than 380 feet into the sky, taller than a 30-story building. At such heights, the conditions at the top of the tree are very different from those at its base. Upper branches experience stronger winds, thinner air, and more intense sunlight. Water must travel upward through the trunk to reach these highest leaves. This journey pushes the limits of plant physiology, requiring extraordinary biological engineering. Remarkably, these giants begin life as seeds no larger than a tomato seed. From such humble beginnings, they grow slowly over centuries, rising higher and higher into the sky. Standing beneath a redwood and looking upward until the crown disappears into the mist can feel like standing at the base of a living skyscraper, one built not from steel or concrete, but from patient growth over hundreds of years. Some flowers bloom only at night. Not every flower opens in daylight. Certain species save their blossoms for the night, unfolding their petals only after the sun has set and the air begins to cool. These nocturnal flowers often release powerful fragrances that drift through the still evening air. Their scent attracts nighttime pollinators such as moths and bats. Plants like the moonflower and the evening primrose open their blossoms at dusk. Their pale petals often appear almost luminous beneath moonlight. Blooming at night offers advantages. It reduces competition with daytime flowers and allows plants to take advantage of pollinators that are active only in darkness. To us, a flower opening beneath the stars may feel magical, but for the plant, it is a practical survival strategy, perfectly timed with the rhythms of its pollinators. Some trees grow roots above ground in order to breathe. In swampy or flooded environments, oxygen becomes scarce within the soil. To solve this problem, certain trees have evolved specialized aerial roots that extend above the water surface. Mangrove trees produce snorkel-like structures called pneumatophores. These roots rise vertically out of the mud and absorb oxygen directly from the air. Bald cypress trees grow strange knobby structures known as cypress knees, which also protrude above the waterline. These adaptations allow trees to survive in wetlands where ordinary roots would suffocate. A forest of mangroves or cypress trees can look almost surreal, with roots rising like small towers around the trunks. But these structures are not decorative. They are breathing organs, elegant solutions to the challenge of life in waterlogged soil. Some seeds travel by hitchhiking on animal fur. Plants have developed countless clever ways to spread their seeds across the landscape. One of the simplest strategies is hitchhiking. Many plants produce seeds covered in tiny hooks, barbs, or sticky hairs. When animals brush past the plants, these seeds cling to their fur. A deer moving through tall grass or a fox squeezing through shrubs may unknowingly carry dozens of seeds along with it. Eventually, the seeds fall off in a new location, often many miles from the parent plant. Humans sometimes become accidental seed carriers as well. Seeds may cling to clothing or socks during walks through fields. In fact, the invention of Velcro was inspired by this very mechanism. A scientist studying burr seeds under a microscope noticed their tiny hooks and recreated the design. What may seem like an annoying burr stuck to your clothes is actually a brilliant evolutionary solution for plant travel. Some seeds can float across oceans. Not all seeds travel by animals or wind. Some plants rely on water to carry their seeds across great distances. The coconut palm is perhaps the most famous example. Coconuts are enclosed within thick, waterproof shells that allow them to float across salt water for months. Ocean currents can carry them thousands of miles before they eventually wash ashore on distant beaches. When the conditions are right, the coconut sprouts and grows into a new tree. Other plants, including certain mangroves and legumes, produce seeds with built-in flotation structures. These seeds act like natural rafts, allowing plants to colonize islands far from their original homes. Ocean currents become invisible highways, transporting tiny packages of life across the planet. Each coconut that sprouts on a tropical beach represents a remarkable journey, a seed that survived an entire ocean voyage. Some plants respond dramatically when touched. Few plants react to touch as quickly as the sensitive plant Mimosa pudica. When its leaves are brushed, they fold inward almost instantly and droop downward. Within minutes, the leaves slowly reopen. This movement is called thigmonasty. Scientists believe the behavior may startle herbivores or reduce further damage from insects. The motion occurs because of rapid changes in water pressure within specialized cells inside the leaf. Although most plants move far more slowly, many species respond to touch in subtle ways. Watching a plant move so quickly challenges our usual perception that plants are completely passive. The sudden folding of a leaf makes it almost seem aware of its surroundings. While plants do not feel or think in the same way animals do, their sensitivity reveals that they constantly monitor the world around them. The Venus flytrap can count. The Venus flytrap is one of the most fascinating plants in nature. Its trap-like leaves are lined with sensitive trigger hairs. But the plant does not close its trap after a single touch. Instead, it waits for 2 touches within roughly 20 seconds before snapping shut. This prevents the plant from wasting energy on raindrops, falling debris, or harmless disturbances. If the trigger hairs are stimulated again after the trap closes, the plant releases digestive enzymes that begin breaking down the captured insect. The Venus flytrap therefore does more than simply react. It measures time and counts stimuli before making a decision. This tiny predator blurs the boundary between plant and animal behavior. It reminds us that even plants can process information in surprisingly sophisticated ways. Long before flowering plants appeared, ferns dominated the earth. Hundreds of millions of years ago, during the Carboniferous period, the world looked very different from today. Vast, swampy forests stretched across the continents, filled with towering tree ferns and ancient relatives of modern plants. These early forests played an enormous role in shaping the planet's atmosphere. By absorbing large amounts of carbon dioxide, they helped create the coal deposits that humans still mine today. Ferns spread across the landscape with their elegant fronds unfurling in delicate spirals. In those distant ages, flowering plants had not yet evolved, so ferns and their relatives formed the dominant greenery of the world. Even today, ferns remain incredibly successful. Thousands of species grow in rainforests, deserts, mountains, and even the cracks of city sidewalks. When you see a fern growing quietly in the shade, you are looking at a lineage that existed long before flowers, fruits, or much of the modern plant kingdom. They are living reminders of Earth's deep botanical past. Pine cones can open and close depending on humidity. A pine cone may appear like a simple, lifeless object lying on the forest floor, but in reality, it is a finely tuned, natural sensor.
When the air is dry, the scales of the cone spread open, allowing the seeds inside to fall out and drift away on the wind. When humidity rises, the scales close tightly again, protecting the seeds from moisture that could cause rot. This movement happens without muscles or nerves. Instead, the tissues of the cone expand or contract, depending on how much water they absorb from the air. Some cones are so sensitive that they repeatedly open and close as weather conditions change. For the tree, this ensures that seeds are released only when the environment favors successful dispersal. To us, a pine cone might seem like a decorative fragment of the forest, but in truth, it is a living instrument, quietly responding to the changing moisture of the air. Some trees produce bright red sap that resembles blood. Certain trees contain a surprising substance beneath their bark, deep red resin that looks strikingly like blood. The famous dragon's blood tree of the Socotra Islands produces this crimson sap when its bark is cut. A similar effect occurs in the bloodwood trees of Australia. For centuries, this red resin has been harvested and used as dye, medicine, and pigment. To see a tree release such vividly colored liquid can be startling. The sap flows slowly down the bark, giving the impression that the tree itself is bleeding. But the substance is not blood. It is a protective resin that helps seal wounds and defend the tree against insects and microbes. Still, the resemblance is powerful enough to inspire myths and legends. Standing beneath these trees while red resin drips onto the ground can feel like stepping into a story from ancient folklore. In botanical terms, bananas are berries, but strawberries are not. Scientific definitions sometimes differ from everyday language. In botany, a true berry is a fruit that develops from a single ovary and contains seeds embedded within its flesh. By this definition, bananas qualify as berries. Strawberries, however, do not. Strawberries develop from multiple ovaries within a single flower, which makes them aggregate fruits rather than true berries. This classification surprises many people, since strawberries appear berry-like while bananas do not. Tomatoes,
Grapes and kiwis are also considered true berries. These quirks remind us that the plant kingdom often defies our expectations. What matters in botanical classification is not appearance, but the way a fruit develops from the flower. Some plants release caffeine into the soil to discourage competitors. Caffeine is famous for stimulating human minds, but in nature, it serves a very different purpose. Certain plants, including coffee and cacao, release caffeine into the surrounding soil through fallen leaves and roots. This chemical can make it difficult for nearby plants to germinate or grow. The process is known as allelopathy, and it allows the caffeine-producing plant to reduce competition for water, sunlight, and nutrients. Caffeine can also affect insects, interfering with their nervous systems and acting as a mild pesticide. For the plant, the compound functions as a chemical weapon. It is fascinating to realize that a molecule humans enjoy in coffee evolved as part of a plant's survival strategy. Bamboo can grow nearly a meter in a single day. Among the fastest growing plants on Earth is bamboo. Under ideal conditions, some bamboo species can grow almost 1 meter in just 24 hours. This extraordinary growth occurs because bamboo stems elongate rapidly through specialized tissues that expand quickly rather than forming entirely new cells. As a result, bamboo shoots can seem to rise from the ground almost overnight. Across many regions of the world, bamboo serves as a valuable resource. It is used for building materials, tools, furniture, and even food. Because it grows so quickly, bamboo is considered a highly renewable material. Although it resembles a tree, bamboo is actually a giant grass. Its remarkable speed demonstrates how powerful plant growth can be when conditions are right. Some desert flowers bloom only once in decades. In some of the harshest deserts on Earth, patience becomes the ultimate survival strategy. Certain plant species remain dormant as seeds for many years, waiting for the rare combination of rainfall and temperature needed for growth. When the right conditions finally arrive, the desert can transform almost overnight. Seeds that have waited for years suddenly sprout, covering the barren ground in fields of color. In Chile's Atacama Desert, this phenomenon is known as the flowering desert. For a brief period, vast stretches of sand become carpets of vibrant blossoms. But the display is temporary. Within a few weeks, the flowers fade and the landscape returns to dryness. The plants retreat once again into dormancy, waiting patiently for the next rare opportunity. To witness such an event is unforgettable, a reminder that even the most lifeless-looking places can hide incredible bursts of beauty. Some plants can recognize their own relatives. Recent research suggests that certain plants are able to distinguish between close relatives and unrelated neighbors. For example, some wildflowers grow more aggressively when surrounded by unfamiliar plants. They extend their roots farther and compete more intensely for nutrients. But when those same plants grow beside their own siblings, their behavior changes. They become less competitive, reducing root growth and conserving shared resources. This phenomenon is known as kin recognition. Scientists are still studying exactly how plants accomplish this. Some believe chemical signals in the soil allow roots to detect the presence of related individuals. Others suspect that subtle differences in reflected light or root secretions may play a role. Whatever the mechanism, the result is remarkable. Plants may behave differently depending on who is growing nearby, cooperating with relatives while competing against strangers. It is a quiet reminder that cooperation and competition often exist side by side in nature. Some trees can survive wildfires and grow again from ashes. For many plants, fire is not purely destructive. Certain tree species have evolved adaptations that allow them to survive and even depend on periodic fires. Eucalyptus trees, giant sequoias, and some oak species develop thick protective bark that shields their living tissues from intense heat. Other trees keep dormant buds hidden beneath their bark or deep within their roots. After a fire passes, these buds sprout new shoots. Some species even require fire to reproduce. Their seeds remain sealed inside cones or pods that only open after exposure to high temperatures. Once the fire clears away competing plants and returns nutrients to the soil, the seeds germinate in the freshly opened space. Walking through a burned forest and seeing bright green shoots emerging from blackened trunks reveals an extraordinary truth. For many plants, fire is not an ending. It is a beginning. Some roots grow upward instead of downward. In wetland environments where soil is saturated with water, oxygen becomes extremely limited underground. To solve this problem, certain plants grow roots that extend upward rather than deeper into the soil. These structures, known as pneumatophores, act like natural breathing tubes. Mangrove forests are famous for these upward-growing roots. They rise above the muddy surface like hundreds of small spikes, allowing oxygen to enter the plant's tissues. Similarly, bald cypress trees produce woody structures called knees that protrude from flooded ground around their trunks. These unusual roots allow plants to survive in environments where ordinary root systems would suffocate. What appears to be a tangled forest of strange wooden shapes is actually a sophisticated breathing system hidden in plain sight. Leaves contain thousands of tiny breathing pores. If you could examine the surface of a leaf under a microscope, you would discover that it is covered in thousands of microscopic openings. These pores are called stomata. Each stoma functions like a tiny mouth. It opens to allow carbon dioxide to enter the plant for photosynthesis. At the same time, oxygen and water vapor exit through the same openings. Plants constantly adjust the opening and closing of these pores depending on light levels, humidity, and internal signals. This delicate balancing act allows plants to regulate water loss while still absorbing the carbon dioxide they need to grow. Without stomata, photosynthesis would not be possible. The air we breathe is deeply connected to these invisible openings scattered across the leaves of the world's vegetation. Some plants launch pollen explosively. Pollination does not always occur gently. In some plants,
pollen is released with surprising force. Certain orchids possess spring-loaded mechanisms that snap packets of pollen onto visiting insects the moment they land. Other plants build tension inside their pollen-bearing structures until the slightest touch releases a cloud of pollen. This explosive strategy ensures that pollen sticks firmly to the bodies of pollinators before they can escape. For the insect, the experience can be quite startling. One moment it lands on a quiet flower, the next moment it is dusted with pollen and sent on its way. What appears to us as a peaceful blossom may conceal hidden mechanical precision designed for successful reproduction. Orchids produce some of the smallest seeds in the plant kingdom. Orchids are famous for their intricate and beautiful flowers, but their seeds are even more remarkable. Each orchid seed is incredibly small, so tiny that it resembles a speck of dust. Unlike most seeds, orchid seeds contain almost no stored nutrients. Instead, they rely on symbiotic fungi in the soil to provide the energy needed for germination. Because they are so lightweight, orchids can produce enormous numbers of seeds, sometimes millions at once. The wind carries these microscopic seeds across great distances. Most will never find the right fungal partner needed to grow, but the few that do can develop into extraordinary plants. This strategy allows orchids to spread widely across forests and mountains around the world. Evergreen trees survive winter using natural antifreeze. In cold climates, many trees shed their leaves before winter arrives. This helps them avoid damage from freezing temperatures. Evergreen trees take a different approach. Species like pine, spruce, and fir keep their needles year-round. They achieve this by producing special proteins that function as natural antifreeze within their cells. These proteins prevent damaging ice crystals from forming inside plant tissues. Their needle-shaped leaves also reduce water loss and resist heavy snowfall. Because they keep their leaves, evergreen trees are able to perform photosynthesis whenever conditions allow, even during brief, warm periods in winter. The sight of dark green needles against bright white snow has become a symbol of endurance in many northern landscapes. Behind that endurance lies millions of years of evolutionary adaptation. Photosynthesis was invented more than 2 billion years ago. The process that fuels nearly all life on Earth, photosynthesis, first evolved over 2 billion years ago. Ancient plants and their microbial ancestors discovered a remarkable ability, capturing sunlight and using its energy to transform carbon dioxide and water into sugars. As a byproduct of this process, oxygen was released into the atmosphere. Before photosynthesis became widespread, Earth's atmosphere contained very little oxygen. The skies and oceans were dominated by entirely different chemical conditions. But as these early photosynthetic organisms spread across the planet, oxygen gradually accumulated in the air. Over time, this transformation allowed complex life to evolve. Animals, including humans, exist today because of that ancient biological innovation. Every breath we take traces back to those early organisms that first learned to harvest sunlight. Even today, photosynthesis continues in leaves, algae, and cyanobacteria all around us, quietly maintaining the balance of energy and air that sustains life on Earth. The Amazon rainforest releases vast clouds of fragrant chemicals.
Within the dense forests of the Amazon, trees constantly release invisible chemical compounds into the air. These molecules are known as volatile organic compounds. Plants release them for many reasons. Some chemicals repel herbivores, others attract pollinators or help protect leaves from excessive heat and sunlight. When billions of leaves release these compounds together, they create the characteristic scent of the rainforest, a rich, complex fragrance that hangs above the canopy. But these chemicals do more than simply create scent. They interact with particles in the atmosphere and can influence cloud formation. In this way, the forest contributes to shaping its own climate. The Amazon does not simply produce oxygen. It also releases chemical signals that interact with the sky itself. Standing within such a forest means being surrounded by invisible plumes of plant chemistry drifting through the air. Some vines climb by feeling nearby surfaces. Vines compete fiercely for sunlight, but many cannot grow upright on their own. Instead, they rely on support from surrounding plants or structures. To find this support, vines extend thin tendrils, flexible structures that slowly sweep through the air. When a tendril touches something solid, an extraordinary response begins. Cells on the touched side of the tendril slow their growth, while cells on the opposite side continue growing. This uneven growth causes the tendril to curl tightly around the object. Once attached, the vine can begin climbing toward the sunlight above. Some species are even capable of distinguishing between different textures. Rough surfaces provide better grip, and vines may prefer them over smoother ones. Watching a tendril wrap itself around a branch is like watching touch translated directly into movement. A single oak tree can support thousands of species. An oak tree is far more than just a plant. It is an entire ecosystem. Its branches provide homes for birds, squirrels, insects, and countless other animals. Its bark hosts mosses, fungi, and lichens. Beneath the soil, its roots connect with vast fungal networks that support microscopic organisms. Scientists have found that a single mature oak can support thousands of different species at once. Each season adds another layer of life. In spring, flowers attract pollinators. In autumn, acorns provide food for animals. Fallen leaves nourish the soil below. Because of its size and longevity, the oak acts as what ecologists call a foundation species, a plant that supports entire communities of life. Standing beneath a large oak tree means standing beneath a living world that has grown and evolved over centuries. Some plants have transparent leaves that allow light to enter. Most leaves appear opaque because their internal tissues absorb sunlight for photosynthesis. But some plants have evolved leaves that are partially translucent. These leaves act like small natural windows, allowing sunlight to penetrate deeper into the plant's tissues. One example is the desert plant lithops, sometimes called the window plant. Much of the plant remains buried underground to avoid heat and grazing animals. Only the top portion of the leaf is exposed. This translucent surface allows light to pass through into the photosynthetic tissues hidden below the soil. In dense forests, similar strategies allow plants to capture even the smallest amount of available sunlight. Transparent leaf structures demonstrate how plants can reshape their own anatomy to make the most of limited light. Trees growing in cities often grow faster but die younger. urban environments create unusual conditions for trees. Cities often contain higher levels of carbon dioxide, warmer temperatures, and regular irrigation from human watering systems. These conditions can cause city trees to grow faster than their counterparts in natural forests. They produce more leaves and add growth rings more rapidly. However, this accelerated growth comes with significant stress. Pollution, compacted soil, heat from pavement, and limited root space shorten the lifespan of many urban trees. A tree that might live several centuries in a forest may survive only a few decades in a city. Despite this, city trees remain incredibly important. They cool streets, filter pollutants from the air, and provide habitat for urban wildlife. Each one works quietly to improve the environment around it. Leaves can generate tiny electrical fields. Inside every leaf, water flows upward from the roots through microscopic tubes known as xylem vessels. As water moves through these channels, it creates faint electrical charges. These charges generate a tiny electrical field around the leaf. The field is so weak that humans cannot detect it, but some animals can. Bees, for example, are able to sense the electrical charges produced by flowers. They use this information to determine whether a flower has recently been visited by another bee. In this way, electrical signals become part of the communication between plants and pollinators. The surface of a leaf may appear simple and silent, but within it, water, light, and electricity interact in subtle ways that guide the behavior of insects and influence entire ecosystems. Some desert plants store water inside swollen stems or roots. In dry desert landscapes, survival often depends on the ability to capture and store water whenever it becomes available. Many desert plants have evolved thickened stems, trunks, or underground roots that function as natural reservoirs. Cacti are among the most well-known examples. After rainfall, their fleshy tissues absorb and store large amounts of water, swelling like living containers. During long periods of drought, the plant slowly draws upon these reserves. Some trees, such as the baobab, can store thousands of liters of water inside their enormous trunks. These trees appear almost swollen, their broad forms reflecting the hidden stores of moisture within. Below the ground, certain desert plants develop massive underground tubers that act like hidden wells. These underground storage organs allow the plant to survive months, sometimes years, without significant rainfall. For people living in desert regions, these natural water reserves have occasionally provided life-saving resources during extreme drought. Each swollen stem or hidden root is a quiet testament to patience and preparation, a strategy built on storing every possible drop. The Rafflesia flower can grow wider than 3 feet. Deep within the forests of Southeast Asia grows one of the strangest flowers on Earth. The Rafflesia is enormous. Its bloom can reach more than 3 feet in diameter, making it one of the largest flowers known. Its thick, reddish petals are covered in pale spots and resemble raw meat in both color and texture. To make matters even stranger, the flower releases a powerful odor similar to rotting flesh. This scent attracts flies, which serve as the plant's pollinators. Unlike most plants, Rafflesia has no leaves, stems, or roots of its own.
Instead, it lives as a parasite inside the tissues of host vines. For months or even years, it remains hidden, drawing nutrients from its host plant. Then suddenly, it bursts forth in a massive bloom that lasts only a few days. To encounter one in the forest is an unforgettable experience. A giant flower appearing almost like something from another world. Some mosses can survive complete dehydration. Mosses may appear delicate and fragile, but many species are astonishingly resilient. Certain mosses can lose nearly all the water in their bodies and remain alive. In this dried state, their metabolism slows almost to a complete halt. The plant becomes dormant, appearing brown and lifeless. Yet when rain returns, the moss can rehydrate and revive within hours, turning green again and resuming normal activity. This ability is known as desiccation tolerance. Special protective proteins and sugars inside the moss cells prevent damage during extreme drying. Because of this adaptation, mosses are able to survive in places where few other plants can live. Rocky cliffs, deserts, tundra, and even old rooftops. To watch a patch of moss revive after rainfall is like witnessing a small resurrection. Trees appear to sleep at night. Recent studies using precise laser scanning technology have revealed something surprising about trees. During the night, many trees slightly lower their branches and leaves. The movement is subtle, often only a few centimeters, but it is consistent. As morning approaches, the branches slowly rise again. Scientists believe this nightly motion may be linked to internal water regulation and energy conservation. The behavior reflects the influence of circadian rhythms, internal biological clocks that regulate many processes in plants and animals. Although the movement is slow and difficult to see, it suggests that forests undergo gentle daily cycles of activity and rest. While humans sleep at night, the trees around us also shift quietly into a different posture. Some plants thrive in volcanic ash and lava fields. After a volcanic eruption, the landscape often appears completely lifeless. Ash blankets the ground, and hardened lava forms jagged black surfaces. Yet, within a few years, life begins to return. Certain pioneer plants are specially adapted to colonize these harsh environments. Ferns, lichens, mosses, and hardy grasses are often among the first to appear. These organisms slowly break down rock and accumulate organic matter, gradually forming soil where other plants can grow. In Hawaii, for example, ohia trees are among the first species to establish themselves on fresh lava flows. Their bright red flowers stand in vivid contrast against a dark volcanic rock. Over time, these pioneer plants transform barren volcanic landscapes into fertile ecosystems. Some plants can change sex depending on environmental conditions. Unlike most animals, many plants are not permanently male or female. Certain species can shift their reproductive roles depending on environmental conditions. For example, if resources are scarce, a plant may produce only pollen. This requires less energy than producing seeds or fruit. When conditions improve, the same plant may begin producing female flowers capable of developing seeds.
Other species alternate between male and female phases throughout their lives. This flexibility increases the chances of successful reproduction in unpredictable environments. For plants, sex is often less about fixed identity and more about responding to the circumstances around them. Some trees produce extremely toxic sap. The manchineel tree, found in parts of the Caribbean and Central America, is considered one of the most dangerous trees in the world. At first glance, it appears harmless, with glossy leaves and small fruits that resemble apples. However, nearly every part of the tree is highly toxic. Its sap contains powerful chemicals that can cause severe burns and blistering when it touches human skin. Even standing beneath the tree during rain can be dangerous, as droplets carrying traces of sap may fall from the leaves. Burning the wood can release toxic fumes capable of damaging the lungs and eyes. Because of these dangers, manchineel trees are often marked with warning signs or painted with red rings to alert people. Despite their toxicity, these trees play an important role in stabilizing coastal soils and supporting local ecosystems. Nature often balances beauty and danger in unexpected ways. Grasslands once covered more than a third of Earth's land surface. Before widespread agriculture and large human settlements transformed the landscape, enormous grasslands stretched across continents. Prairies, savannas, and steppes supported vast herds of grazing animals and complex ecosystems filled with life. These grass-dominated environments once covered more than a third of the planet's land area. Today, many of these regions have been converted into farmland or fragmented by development. Yet grasslands remain among the most important ecosystems on Earth. Their deep root systems store enormous quantities of carbon beneath the soil, often holding more carbon than forests of similar size. Grasslands also stabilize soil, reduce erosion, and regulate water cycles across large landscapes. For countless species, from bison and antelope to elephants and migratory birds, grasslands provide essential habitat. When people imagine important ecosystems, they often picture forests or oceans, but grasses have shaped the planet in their own quiet way. Sometimes life's abundance does not rise high into the sky. Sometimes it spreads low and wide, forming a living green skin across the earth. Some plants produce natural rubber. Long before synthetic materials were invented, humans relied on plants to produce rubber. The para-rubber tree produces a milky fluid known as latex. When collected and processed, this fluid becomes the flexible material used to manufacture tires, gloves, and countless other products. Latex is not unique to rubber trees. Many plants produce similar substances, including dandelions and guayuli shrubs. Inside the plant, latex serves as a defense mechanism. When the plant is damaged, the sticky fluid flows from the wound, sealing the tissue and discouraging insects from feeding on it. The compounds inside latex can taste bitter or even be toxic. To humans, latex became an incredibly useful resource. But for the plant, it is simply another survival strategy, a chemical barrier protecting delicate tissues. The next time you see a dandelion stem release a drop of milky sap, you are witnessing the same defensive chemistry
that eventually led to entire industries. Trees can trap ancient air inside amber. Amber, the golden fossilized resin produced by ancient trees, often contains beautifully preserved insects and fragments of prehistoric plants. But amber sometimes holds something even more remarkable. Inside the hardened resin, scientists have discovered tiny bubbles of air that became trapped millions of years ago. These bubbles preserve samples of the ancient atmosphere. By analyzing the gases within them, researchers can learn about the composition of Earth's air during distant geological periods. They can estimate how much oxygen and carbon dioxide filled the skies when dinosaurs walked across the planet. It is extraordinary to realize that trees, simply by producing sticky resin, created natural time capsules. Each piece of amber is more than a gemstone. It is a preserved fragment of the planet's ancient breath. Some aquatic plants have leaves that completely repel water. Water lilies and lotus plants possess leaves with remarkable surfaces. When water lands on these leaves, it does not spread out. Instead, droplets bead up and roll away, leaving the surface dry. This effect is known as the lotus effect. Microscopic structures on the leaf create tiny bumps that prevent water from sticking. As droplets roll across the surface, they collect dust and dirt, effectively cleaning the leaf. This natural self-cleaning mechanism helps prevent fungal infections and allows sunlight to reach the photosynthetic tissues below. The lotus effect has even inspired modern engineering. Scientists have developed water-repellent materials and self-cleaning surfaces based on the structure of lotus leaves. A single leaf floating on a pond may appear simple, yet its surface represents an elegant combination of biology and physics. Some flowers launch insects during pollination. Pollination is not always a gentle interaction between plant and insect. Certain flowers use spring-loaded mechanisms that release stored tension when touched. One famous example is the mountain laurel. Its petals hold small pockets where pollen rests under tension. When an insect lands on the flower, the tension releases suddenly. The pollen catapults outward, striking the insect and coating it in pollen grains. The startled pollinator then flies away, carrying the pollen to another flower. Other plants use similar mechanical strategies to ensure that pollen is transferred efficiently. To human observers, flowers often appear delicate and peaceful. But hidden beneath their petals may lie intricate biological machinery designed for precise and effective reproduction. Some fungi and plants share energy through symbiosis. Most symbiotic relationships between plants and fungi involve nutrient exchange. Fungi help plants absorb minerals from the soil, while plants provide sugars created through photosynthesis. But scientists have discovered that some fungal partners may also participate in capturing light energy. Certain fungi living within plant tissues are capable of interacting with light and transferring energy to their host. In return, the plant supplies carbohydrates that the fungus cannot produce on its own. These partnerships blur the boundaries between different forms of life. They reveal that many organisms do not survive alone, but instead form complex, cooperative systems. In some forests, plants and fungi function almost like a single, integrated organism, sharing resources and energy across underground networks. Bamboo forests can reduce noise pollution. Dense bamboo groves do more than create beautiful landscapes. The hollow stems and dense growth patterns of bamboo
help absorb and scatter sound waves. When planted in thick clusters, bamboo forests can significantly reduce noise from roads, cities, or industrial areas. Because of this property, bamboo is sometimes used in urban planning as a natural sound barrier. Beyond their acoustic benefits, bamboo forests also stabilize soil, prevent erosion, and provide habitat for wildlife. Standing inside a bamboo grove often feels unusually peaceful. The outside world grows quieter, and sound seems softened and distant. It is a reminder that plants shape not only the appearance of a landscape, but also its soundscape. Some seeds germinate only after passing through an animal's digestive system. For certain plants, the journey through an animal's stomach is an essential step in reproduction. Many fruits are designed specifically to attract animals that will eat them. The seeds inside are protected by tough outer coatings that allow them to survive digestion. As the seed passes through the digestive tract, stomach acids weaken the outer shell just enough to help it germinate later. Eventually, the seed is deposited in a new location, often surrounded by nutrient-rich waste that helps it grow. This process, called endozoochory, allows plants to spread far beyond the reach of wind or gravity. Many of the fruits humans enjoy, including berries and cherries, evolved in part to attract animals for this purpose. To us, fruit is food. To the plant, it is transportation. Millions of years ago, Antarctica was covered in forests. Today, Antarctica is a frozen continent of ice and snow. But the planet was not always so cold. Tens of millions of years ago, during warmer periods of Earth's history, Antarctica supported forests filled with trees, ferns, and flowering plants. Fossilized wood, leaves, and pollen discovered beneath the ice reveal that ancient forests once grew there. Some of these forests existed even during long polar winters, when the sun disappeared for months at a time. Scientists believe these plants adapted to extreme seasonal cycles of light and darkness. During the endless summer days, they would grow rapidly, storing energy to survive the dark winter months. These discoveries remind us that Earth's climate has changed dramatically across deep time. Landscapes that now appear frozen and lifeless were once filled with greenery. Hidden beneath the Antarctic ice lies the memory of forests that thrived in a very different world. Some plants produce fruits that are beautiful but highly toxic. Many plants produce colorful fruits to attract animals that will spread their seeds. Bright reds, blues, and oranges signal that the fruit is ripe and ready to eat. However, not every attractive fruit is safe. Certain plants produce berries that look delicious, but contain powerful toxins. The deadly nightshade plant, for example, produces glossy black berries that resemble small cherries. Just a few of these berries can be extremely dangerous if eaten. Plants develop these toxins as a defense mechanism, discouraging animals from eating the seeds or destroying the plant itself. In some cases, specific animals have evolved resistance to these poisons and can safely consume the fruit while spreading the seeds. For humans, however, the lesson is simple. Nature's beauty does not always guarantee safety. Leaves can tilt themselves to capture more sunlight. Plants depend on sunlight for photosynthesis, and many species have developed ways to adjust their leaves to capture as much light as possible. Some leaves slowly rotate or tilt throughout the day, aligning themselves with the angle of the sun. Other plants change the orientation of their leaves depending on environmental conditions. During intense midday heat, leaves may tilt downward to reduce water loss. In cooler morning and evening hours, they may turn upward again to absorb more light. These movements are usually extremely slow, unfolding over hours rather than seconds. Yet they allow plants to fine-tune their exposure to sunlight and temperature. What appears to be a motionless leaf is often quietly adjusting itself to the changing sky. Plants can sense gravity and grow accordingly. Even in complete darkness, plant roots reliably grow downward while shoots grow upward. This ability is known as gravitropism. Inside plant cells are tiny structures that contain dense particles of starch. These particles settle toward the lower side of the cell under the influence of gravity. The plant uses this information to determine which direction is down. Roots grow in the direction of gravity, anchoring the plant and searching for water and nutrients. Shoots grow in the opposite direction, reaching toward the light above. This simple yet effective mechanism allows plants to orient themselves correctly even when seeds germinate underground or beneath thick layers of soil. Without gravitropism, plants would struggle to establish themselves in the correct position to survive. Lightning strikes can leave marks inside tree rings. Trees that survive lightning strikes sometimes carry evidence of the event deep within their trunks. The intense heat and electrical current from a lightning bolt can damage living tissues and alter the tree's growth pattern.
In the years following the strike, the tree may produce irregular growth rings that record the stress it experienced. Scientists studying tree rings, a field known as dendrochronology, can sometimes identify these scars. By examining the rings, researchers can determine roughly when the lightning strike occurred. In this way, trees serve as living historical records, preserving traces of storms that happened decades or even centuries ago. The next time you see a tall tree standing alone in an open field, consider that it may have silently endured powerful storms long before we ever noticed it. The smell of freshly cut grass is actually a distress signal. The pleasant scent released when grass is cut or crushed may seem refreshing to us, but for the grass, it represents a chemical alarm. When plant tissues are damaged, they release compounds known as green leaf volatiles. These molecules serve several purposes. They can warn nearby plants of potential danger, trigger defensive responses, and even attract insects that prey on herbivores. To human noses, the smell of freshly cut grass often evokes feelings of summer and open fields. Yet the fragrance itself originates from the plant's response to injury. It is another reminder that the signals plants produce may carry meanings very different from the impressions we experience. Some desert plants appear silver to reflect sunlight. In harsh desert environments, surviving intense sunlight becomes a constant challenge. Many desert plants have evolved leaves covered in fine hairs or waxy coatings that give them a silvery appearance. These reflective surfaces bounce a portion of the sunlight away, helping reduce heat absorption. The silvery color also protects delicate tissues from damage caused by strong ultraviolet radiation. Plants such as sagebrush and desert spoon display this shimmering coloration across dry landscapes. When wind moves across these plants, their pale leaves flicker and shimmer in the sunlight like waves of silver. This coloration is not simply beautiful. It is a carefully evolved strategy for surviving the relentless brightness of desert environments.
Some plants grow enormous underground roots used as food. Beneath the soil, some plants store large quantities of nutrients inside thick roots or tubers. These underground structures serve as energy reserves that allow the plant to survive difficult seasons. For humans, many of these roots have become important food sources. Carrots, sweet potatoes, cassava, and yams all store energy underground in the form of starch. In certain tropical plants, these underground storage organs can grow to remarkable sizes. Cassava roots, for example, can grow several feet long and weigh many kilograms. By storing energy safely below ground, the plant protects its resources from grazing animals and harsh environmental conditions. These hidden reservoirs of nutrition have supported human civilizations for thousands of years. The next time you eat a root vegetable, you are tasting a plant's carefully stored survival strategy. Plants quietly shape the world in ways we rarely notice. When we walk through forests, gardens, or fields, it is easy to think of plants as background scenery, silent, unmoving elements of the landscape. Yet the more scientists study them, the more remarkable they appear. Plants build the atmosphere we breathe through photosynthesis. They regulate rainfall, anchor soil, and support vast networks of life both above and below the ground. They communicate through chemicals carried on the wind and through fungal networks beneath the soil. They sense light, gravity, vibration, and even subtle electrical signals in their environment. Some plants wait decades for the right conditions to grow. Others bloom for only a few hours in the night before fading again. Some mimic insects, deceive pollinators, or trap prey in ingenious ways. Others survive fire, drought, freezing temperatures, or the harsh conditions of deserts and volcanic landscapes. Across forests, oceans, mountains, and grasslands, plants quietly perform the work that keeps ecosystems functioning. They build habitats for animals, create food for entire food webs, and influence the climate of the planet itself. Without them, the world would be almost unrecognizable. And yet, most of their activity unfolds at a pace so slow that we rarely notice it. A leaf turning slightly toward the sun. A root exploring the soil millimeter by millimeter. A seed waiting patiently through years of drought before finally sprouting. These movements are easy to miss in the rush of everyday life. But if we slow down and observe carefully, the plant world reveals itself as a place of subtle motion, quiet communication, and extraordinary resilience. Plants may not move across landscapes like animals, but they transform landscapes over time. Forests grow where once there was bare ground. Wetlands form where water gathers among roots. Entire ecosystems rise and fall around the presence of vegetation. Even cities depend on plants. Street trees cool sidewalks and buildings. Parks offer shade and cleaner air. Crops growing in fields feed billions of people every day. The connection between humans and plants runs deeper than we often realize. Every meal we eat ultimately traces back to photosynthesis, the ancient process that turns sunlight into energy stored in living tissue. Every breath we take is influenced by the oxygen produced by plants across the planet. And every landscape we admire, whether a tropical rainforest, a quiet meadow, or a mountain forest, is shaped by the presence of plants. Yet, despite their importance, plants rarely demand our attention. They grow patiently. They adapt slowly. They continue their work whether we notice them or not. Perhaps that is part of what makes them so calming to observe. In a world that often feels fast and noisy, plants remind us of a different rhythm, one measured in seasons, years, and centuries. A tree may stand in the same place through generations of human lives. A seed may remain dormant for decades before finally awakening. And forests may take hundreds of years to fully mature. These slower timescales invite us to pause and reflect, to notice the quiet growth happening around us, and to remember that life does not always rush forward. Sometimes it unfolds gently, leaf by leaf, root by root. So the next time you pass by a tree, a patch of grass, or a small flower growing beside a path, consider the hidden complexity within it. Beneath that simple appearance may lie chemical conversations, electrical signals, ancient survival strategies, and connections stretching far beneath the soil. The world of plants is far richer and more mysterious than it first appears. And like so many things in nature, its greatest wonders often reveal themselves only to those who slow down enough to notice. For now, let these quiet thoughts drift gently through your mind. Imagine forests breathing slowly in the darkness, roots spreading silently through the soil, leaves turning softly toward the morning light. And as the world of plants continues its calm, patient work across the earth, you can simply rest, knowing that life is quietly unfolding all around you. Good night.